Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the Minister M.L. Kimball coming to you live here, and we are going to go over the complaint that we have drafted that we are going to file with the Fulton County Courts involving State Farm Fire and Casualty Company and our corporation, the HCV Distribution Corporation. Those of you that have been following this situation, you guys pretty much know the situation and you know what we are been faced with over the past 2 years. And so I want to take the time out to go over this complaint in detail and make sure that you all have an opportunity to see exactly what we're going to be putting before the Fulton County Court. And we are looking for justice for the racial discrimination, the bad faith practices, the breach of contract, and all of the different violations that we've experienced as a minority-owned corporation, the HCV Distribution Corporation. So please like, share, comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm going to go ahead and read the complaint. That way you guys have all of the details and you can follow along with what is going to happen as we go forth with this action against State Farm Fire and Casualty Company. I'm going to go ahead and start with the complaint. So again, please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. In the Court of Common Pleas, Fulton County, Ohio, State Farm Fire and Casualty Company, 1 State Farm Plaza, Bloomington, Illinois, 61710. Complaint for damages for breach of contract, defamation, bad faith practices, and racial discrimination. Jury demand endorsed herein. Introduction. In a community where trust and integrity form the cornerstone of business and personal relationships, the HCV Distribution Corporation, under the leadership of Mr. Marquise L. Kimball Sr., has been a beacon of ethical conduct and service. Despite their unwavering commitment to fairness and community welfare, State Farm Corporation has engaged in a pattern of deceitful, discriminatory, and unethical behavior that not only undermines the values we hold dear, but also inflicts profound personal and professional harm on Mr. Kimball and his associates. Prior to the wrongful denial of a legitimate insurance claim, State Farm was fully aware of the circumstances surrounding the vandalism of Mr. Kimball's business, a hate crime that devastated a thriving enterprise. Yet they chose to propagate false accusations and delay claim processes, actions that reveal a disturbing disregard for justice and equality. This lawsuit seeks to hold State Farm accountable for their repeated and deliberate misconduct, which has not only tarnished the reputation of a respected African-American business owner, but also jeopardized the livelihoods of those associated with the HCV Distribution Corporation. Jurisdiction, Part 2. Subject matter jurisdiction. This court has subject matter jurisdiction over the claims presented in this complaint pursuant to the laws of the state of Ohio. As the matters in controversy arise under the state statutes and common law governing the claims alleged herein, the claims do not involve any federal question or exceed the monetary threshold that would necessitate transfer to a federal jurisdiction. Personal jurisdiction. This court has personal jurisdiction over the parties involved in this matter as the defendants reside in, conducted business in, or have committed actionable offenses within Fulton County, Ohio. Furthermore, the events or omissions giving rise to the claims occurred within this jurisdiction, thereby establishing a significant connection to Fulton County, Ohio, sufficient to confer personal jurisdiction under the state's long-arm statute and consistent with the principles of due process. Part 3, the parties. Plaintiff, HCV Distribution Corporation, Inc., a corporation with its principal place of business at 2034 Austin Bluffs Court, Toledo, Ohio, 43615. The plaintiff is incorporated and has its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. Defendant, State Farm Fire and Casualty Company, a corporation with its principal place of business at 1 State Farm Plaza, Bloomington, Illinois 61710. The defendant is incorporated and has its principal place of business in the state of Illinois. General allegations. Plaintiff HCV Distribution Corporation, Inc. is a corporation duly established and registered in the state of Ohio, engaging in the wholesale distribution of CBD products and retail operations through the HCV store. Defendants, State Farm Corporation and associate agents, provided insurance coverage to plaintiff under a policy that was active during the incidents described herein. On or about the date of the incident, plaintiff's business premises located at 106-108 South Main Street, Swanton, Ohio, suffered vandalism and theft, including the use of racial slurs and significant property damage. Defendant State Farm Corporation, through its agents and representatives, engaged in actions that violated Section 390121 of the Ohio laws and administrative rules by disseminating false and misleading statements regarding plaintiff and its officers. Specifically, defendant falsely accused Mr. Marquise L. Kimball Sr., an officer of plaintiff, of orchestrating the vandalism of his own business premises. Despite the proximity of the Swanton Police Department, located just 2 miles from the vandalized property, there was a substantial delay in police response, arriving over an hour after being notified. Upon arrival, law enforcement conducted an interrogation of Mr. Kimball and his sister, Jacqueline Kimball, without prior notice, and separated them to coerce a confession, thereby violating their rights. Defendant failed to conduct a thorough investigation into other potential suspects, including employees and management of McNeil Chevrolet, despite suggestions and available leads. Defendant's agent, Lonnie Johnson, focused the investigation disproportionately on Mr. Kimball and his sister, neglecting other credible avenues of inquiry. Defendant denied plaintiff's insurance claim based on unfound allegations related to Mr. Kimball's personal finances and purported discrepancies in inventory reports. The denial of the claim was issued after an unreasonable delay of 250 days, during which defendant engaged in a pattern of requesting redundant documentation as a delay tactic. Defendant's actions, including making derogatory and racially discriminatory statements about Mr. Kimball's appearance and character, further damaging his reputation. Defendant disclosed unauthorized insurance policy information to third parties, which was confirmed during a recorded deposition by Deborah McSorley, who was privy to the claim denial before Mr. Kimball. Ms. McSorley changed locks on the property and conducted private auctions, further compounding the damages suffered by plaintiff. Plaintiff possesses video and photographic evidence with timestamps documenting the second burglary under the observation of local law enforcement, which failed to investigate the incident. The overall conduct of defendant, including the dissemination of false statements, failure to conduct a proper investigation, and unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, constitutes bad faith practices, breach of contract, defamation of character, and racial discrimination. Plaintiff has suffered substantial financial losses, damage to reputation, and emotional distress due to defendant's actions, all of which are documented and supported by evidence gathered. Plaintiff has engaged in extensive efforts to resolve these issues through legal notices and communications with defendant, seeking a fair resolution before pursuing formal legal action. Count 1, breach of contract. Plaintiff incorporates all other paragraphs in this complaint by reference as though fully written here. A valid contract existed between plaintiff, the HCV Distribution Corporation, and defendant, State Farm Corporation, wherein defendant agreed to provide insurance coverage for plaintiff's business operations. Plaintiff performed all conditions, obligations, and duties required under the terms of the contract, including timely payment of all premiums due and providing all necessary documentation and information as requested by defendant. Defendant breached the contract by failing to investigate thoroughly and impartially the claims submitted by plaintiff regarding the vandalism and subsequent losses at plaintiff's business premises as required under the terms of the insurance policy. Defendant further breached the contract by denying plaintiff's legitimate insurance claims based on unfounded and discriminatory assumptions about plaintiff's involvement in the alleged vandalism, contrary to the terms and the spirit of the insurance agreement. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's breaches, plaintiff has suffered significant financial damages, including but not limited to the loss of business assets, inability to continue business operations, damage to business reputation, and subsequent financial liabilities exceeding the amount of $8 million. The actions of defendant, including the delay in processing the claim and the eventual denial of the claim, were neither justified nor supported by the facts or the terms of the insurance policy, demonstrating a disregard for the contractual obligations owed to the plaintiff. By failing to conduct a fair and comprehensive investigation and by denying the claim without a legitimate basis, defendant has not only breached the explicit terms of the contract, but also the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing inherent in all contractual relationships. Plaintiff relied to its detriment on defendant's promises and assurances of coverage and protection under the policy, which were ultimately not honored, leading to substantial losses for the plaintiff. Due to defendant's breach of contract, plaintiff seeks damages in excess of $8 million, which represents the actual and consequential damages suffered as a result of defendant's actions. Wherefore, plaintiff demands judgment against defendant for compensatory damages in excess of $8 million plus interest costs and any other relief this court deems just and proper. Count 2, defamation of character. Plaintiff incorporates all other paragraphs in this complaint by reference as though fully written here. Defendant made a false statement about the plaintiff. The false statement was published to a third party without privilege. The publication of the statement was made with at least negligence concerning its truth or falsity. The publication of the statement caused damage to the plaintiff. Specifically, defendant State Farm Corporation, through its agents and representatives, falsely accused plaintiff Mr. Marquise Kimball of committing insurance fraud and being involved in a hate crime against his own business. These accusations were made publicly and without any substantial evidence to support such claims. These false statements were disseminated widely, including to other entities and individuals within the insurance and business communities, thereby constituting publication. The statements were made recklessly, without regard to their truth, as evidenced by the lack of a thorough investigation by defendant into the circumstances surrounding the alleged vandalism and the quick dissemination of the accusatory information. As a direct result of these false statements, Mr. Kimball suffered significant damage to his personal and professional reputation, was subject to public ridicule and contempt, and experienced emotional distress. Additionally, the business operations of the HEV Distribution Corporation were adversely affected, leading to financial losses. The actions of defendant State Farm Corporation in making and publishing these false statements were not privileged, as they were not made in the confines of a private or protected setting, but rather were intended for broader dissemination to negatively impact plaintiff's reputation. The defamation by defendant has directly contributed to the financial and reputational damage sustained by plaintiff, which is ongoing and has hindered the ability of Mr. Kimball and the HCV Distribution Corporation to conduct business effectively. Wherefore, plaintiff demands judgment against defendant for compensatory and punitive damages plus interest, cost, and any other relief this court deems just and proper. Count 3, bad faith practices. Plaintiff incorporates all other paragraphs in this complaint by reference as though fully written here. Under Ohio law, an insurer owes a duty of good faith and fair dealing to its insured, and a breach of this duty constitutes bad faith. State Farm Corporation breached its duty of good faith and fair dealing by engaging in a pattern of conduct that was designed to delay, deny, and diminish the claims of the plaintiff without reasonable justification. Specifically, State Farm Corporation disseminated false and unfounded accusations against Mr. Kimball, alleging his involvement in a hate crime against his own business, which directly contradicts the evidence provided by the plaintiff that Mr. Kimball had no motive or opportunity to commit such an act. State Farm Corporation failed to conduct a thorough and unbiased investigation into the claim, as evidenced by their refusal to investigate other potential suspects who were reported by Mr. Kimball, and their focus solely on Mr. Kimball based on unfounded suspicions. State Farm Corporation investigation was unreasonably delayed, taking over 250 days to reach a decision on the claim, which is indicative of an intent to deny the claim by wearing down the plaintiff. State Farm Corporation made derogatory and racially discriminatory statements about Mr. Kimball's appearance and character, which were irrelevant to the claim and indicative of bad faith motives. State Farm Corporation disclosed unauthorized insurance policy information as admitted by their former agent during a recording court proceeding, which is a breach of their duty of confidentiality and further evidence of bad faith. State Farm Corporation's denial of the claim was based on alleged discrepancies in Mr. Kimball's finances that were never substantiated, demonstrating a perpetual basis for the denial of the claim. The actions of State Farm Corporation have caused significant financial and reputational damage to Mr. Kimball and the HCV Distribution Corporation, which were foreseeable consequences of their bad faith practices. The conduct of State Farm Corporation was intentional, willful, and in reckless disregard of the rights of Mr. Kimball and the HCV Distribution Corporation. As a direct and proximate result of the bad faith practices of State Farm Corporation, Mr. Kimball and the HCV Distribution Corporation have suffered damages in excess of $8 million. Wherefore, plaintiff demands judgment against defendant for compensatory and punitive damages in excess of $8 million plus interest, cost, and any other relief that this court deems just and proper. Count 4, racial discrimination. Plaintiff incorporates all other paragraphs in this complaint by reference as though fully written here. Defendant engaged in intentional discrimination based on race in violation of applicable laws prohibiting racial discrimination. Defendant's actions including making racially derogatory statements about plaintiff's appearance and character, specifically targeting plaintiff's race, which is indicative of racial animus. Defendant disappropriately scrutinized and investigated plaintiff, an African American, while failing to apply the same level of scrutiny to other potential suspects of Caucasian descent despite similar circumstances. Defendant's unfounded and discriminatory accusations against plaintiff regarding the vandalism of his business with racial slurs and the subsequent denial of plaintiff's insurance claim based on these accusations were actions steeped in racial bias. Defendant's dissemination of false statements about plaintiff, including the assertion that plaintiff was involved in a hate crime against his own business, was racially motivated and intended to discredit and harm plaintiff due to his race. The delay in police response and the subsequent treatment of plaintiff and his sister during the investigation, including coercive interrogation tactics without just cause, further exemplify the racial discrimination faced by plaintiff. Defendant's actions caused significant damage to plaintiff's personal and professional reputation, emotional distress, financial loss, all of which were the direct results of racial discrimination. The overall conduct of defendant, as detailed in the proceedings paragraphs, constitutes a pattern of racial discrimination intended to undermine and disadvantage plaintiff because of his race. Wherefore, plaintiff demands judgment against defendant for compensatory and punitive damages, plus interest, cost, and any other relief this court deems just and proper. Demand for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff, the HEV Distribution Corporation, respectfully prays this court grant judgment in favor of plaintiff on all claims, including breach of contract, defamation of character, bad faith practices, and racial discrimination. Issue a judicial determination of the rights, duties, and obligation of the parties hereto. Award plaintiff actual damages in amount to be determined at trial, which exceeds $8 million, reflecting the severe financial, emotional, and reputational damages suffered. Grant plaintiff the maximum economic, non-economic, actual, statutory, emotional, general, punitive, and other damages available under the law. Award plaintiff attorney's fees with the appropriate multiplier plus costs and expenses of litigation. Enjoin the defendant from continuing the discriminatory practices and defamatory conduct against plaintiff. Order defendant to take corrective actions to rectify the damage caused and prevent future occurrences. Award such other and further relief as the court deems just and proper. Plaintiff avers that the relief sought herein is necessary to compensate for the extensive damages incurred and to prevent further harm to plaintiff and the community it serves. Jury demand, HCV Distribution Corporation, Inc. hereby demands a jury on all triable matters, respectively submitted. So the reality of it is, I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with State Farm. If you happen to be African American, we have been dealing with this battle for over 2 years. And now our complaint has been drafted and it will be filed no later than January 10th, 2025. I want to thank you guys for all of your support because this has been an ongoing battle. This has been something that we have been fighting by ourselves with no support. And I am so excited that the complaint has been drafted and now we are going to seek judgment. We are coming after State Farm Fire and Casualty Company for these violations and the destruction of our business. And we thank you all for your support. Those of you that want to support our cause and have the funds to do anything, we appreciate anything you can support us with. You can do so by using our cash tag at DonateKNSMIN. Please like, share, comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And once again, I want to thank you all for all of your continued support. And until next time, be blessed on purpose.